Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group with your end of day recap for Monday the 13th. And another day of the indices just moving higher here. 3 days in a row. You can look at these nice green bars here on the S&P. Just something we haven't seen since this November run up, and just really strong. I mean, there's not much to really kind of gloss over here. And overanalyze here. So this video is going to be pretty short. S&P, if you want to talk about possibly a negative in the market, is we are getting a bit overbought. Here's the last time that the RSI got above 70. And right now it's what about 73.6 in the S&P. So it is a little bit overbought. Kind of like where we got here, and we did go sideways for a bit. So, it does feel like it's, everybody's looking for a reason for this market to kind of go down at this point. And, people are talking about, hey, it's so overbought. It's not that overbought. We could go up a little bit higher. I do think that we probably do a little bit of digestion tomorrow because Yellen is speaking. Maybe she says something that spooks the markets about an interest rate hike. What are we expecting right now for an interest rate hike? Let me just bring up the expectations. The market is not expecting a rate increase in March. So that's probably a little bit too low. Even in May, the market is still kind of doubting. This is Fed Fund futures and what they're predicting, what they're pricing in for the next interest rate hike. So you're looking at June. It basically says it's a 73% chance of the next quarter of a percentage interest rate hike. So March, it's not expecting. So that could be a possible thing to watch. I think she's speaking at 10 o'clock. She's speaking twice this week, but 10 o'clock, I think, tomorrow is when she's speaking. So, that could bring it down. That could spook the markets a little bit. You look at NASDAQ. I mean, NASDAQ is just absolutely on fire. Now, NASDAQ is a little bit more overbought. That's a 78 RSI. That's pretty decently high. Last time it reached this, or around a 75, it cooled off for about a week. So we're a little bit more extended there. So that's a little bit troubling. Small caps at the end of the day, they kind of gave back some of those gains. They did start the day up about 85 basis points. Not the best, a little bit different looking candle. If you actually look at IWM, it's even going to be red, I think. So different looking candle today for small caps. Did that maybe give a little bit of a clue that we've kind of gone a little bit too far, too fast? Possibly. Maybe IWM comes back and retests this red line top of value. That would be a good place to add. So that's kind of what I'm looking. Today, what I did mostly was take profits in a lot of trades. Couple of the trades that we put on earlier, or not earlier this week, but last week, Sienna was a really nice trade. Rio was a nice trade that you had to be a little bit patient on. We saw repeat call buying in Rio, so I took that trade completely off today. So for me, it was a lot of profit taking in some trades that I've recently put on. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit more in cash. The other thing that's not so bad is we're not seeing these big overnight moves in S&P futures. So it used to be about a year ago you'd get in and you'd kind of stare at the screens all day long because futures would either open up 30 or 40 basis points and just kind of either just grind for the whole day, or it would be the other way around. They'd open up down and maybe come back at the end of the day. But the majority of the move that's happening is happening, once the cash open, once the 9:30 open starts, which is great. So you don't have to carry a lot of risk to take advantage of this market. And I will say this: it's been a while since I've seen just full participation in sectors. I mean, you look at steel names. There is a steel ETF out there. It's SLX. It is a little bit bumpy in terms of some of the names that are in it. You'll see a lot of gaps in this because some of the names that are in this ETF are international names. So you could see that names that are open in the overnight market session, those ADRs will gap up, but you can see it's basically something participating almost every day in this steel ETF. U.S. Steel and AKS were strong last week. MT was strong last week. MT's on the leaderboard today up 5%. Look at Valet up 8.4%. Cliffs was also up very nicely, which was the latest catalyst for the steel names. But Nucor was upgraded this morning, even despite AKS getting downgraded by Morgan Stanley, still up 4 points. Just shook that off like no problem. Up 4.4% today. So that is I start with steel because that's the strongest. But you look past that, and you've got even the semis were up today. This was based on ON semi, which I was lucky enough to be long. I put a kind of a lotto trade on Friday for their earnings, and just bought the. What did I buy? Where is this? Let's see if I can find this. The ON February 15 calls. I bought those for 15 cents. I took them off. The highest target I hit was 75 cents. I got a little bit greedy. I could have hit about 90 cents on them, and I wasn't able to get it, and it kind of fell. That you could see it trickle down pretty quickly here in this name. But that kind of led the semis higher. There was a bunch of other semi names besides NVIDIA underperformed, which is still kind of processing, the earnings move. This ended down $5 today. I'm waiting for this to hit. It's getting pretty close to it, so tomorrow might be close enough. If it hits 107, the top of value, I'm going to look to sell put spreads at this point. So it's almost been 3 days since earnings. So we typically see this digestion that takes place for names that have really run into earnings. So I think it's almost around the right time. If it hits that 107 or goes a little bit below it and recaptures it, I will be looking to sell put spreads. But besides this name, all the semis were pretty strong. SMH was up 1.3%. And then financials. I mean, the financials are really, really strong. So again, it's not just one group or, that's pulling the cart. XLF just broke out to another high. Industrials broke out. XLB materials look like they're almost ready to get to that new high. It's 53.26. Yeah, I mean, you have to talk about Apple a little bit. All-time high for Apple today as it continues to go higher. It continues to grind higher. In terms of option activity today, so just a lot more positive things. I heard that the VIX was up today, but only 2%. A really small move here from the lows. So I don't think that's really alarming. Maybe there's some follow through tomorrow. I'd watch maybe the VIX tomorrow morning before the Yellen speech, and it does make sense that the VIX is going up ahead of the Yellen speech as well. I think that's quite normal. If it didn't go up, I would think that would not. I would think that would be abnormal. But to me, it's exciting to see so many groups that are breaking out, and it's not just the FANG stocks, or it's not just a couple of the momentum names. You almost got a full participation. The only group that was really down today, besides the gold miners, was retail, which we know retail is kind of troubled. But retail also, when you think about the last couple days, it had a nice late in the week rally, so I don't think I was actually looking for something to actually sell in retail towards the end of last week. On Friday, I was like, let me sell some call spreads in XRT. They didn't have enough, there wasn't enough premium to really sell, but you could see they were down 1.3, so it was a good idea. Just the execution, I just couldn't find anything to do that. I was looking to sell either March or April call spreads, but besides that, so that's a review of the indices. Facebook kind of lagged today. We can kind of go over those names really quick, but we saw a nice weekly call buyer. I would watch this name for tomorrow. Pretty aggressive orders that went up. You could see 17,000 of these Feb 134 calls went up today, and most of them went up pretty aggressively. You could see this was a sweep opening trade for Facebook 134 calls. So it got a little bit of a bid today, but I think that's definitely a name to watch today. It just did not participate today. It actually finished down. You go through the rest of the FANG stocks. Amazon very strong after the open. Looks like it gave back some of those gains. Google, I talked about a little bit earlier in the trading room, because I am Google. I took a lot of that trade off today. Why did I do that? Because it reached the target. When I put this trade on originally, I was looking for, this was right after, a few days after earnings, about 3 days after earnings, I put the trade on, and I said I think this can get from 820 to about 840 without, and that's the resistance zone. So I took most of that trade off today. I left a little bit on, but it basically took out my upside target, and that's what I was looking for in some call spreads. Netflix also, I don't think, I think definitely watch Netflix. Netflix did not participate today. So if you're looking for, the dip to buy, Netflix, it's good to see some of these names kind of take a little bit of a breather. I'm really looking for, I know AMD was down a little bit. I'm really looking for this to kind of move down a little bit further, maybe to right around 1250 before I look to go long this again. So that's just kind of my feeling for AMD. Other names that we saw option activity, there was a lot in the morning. Autodesk was one name I thought was pretty interesting. There was a lot of spreads that were bought. They reported earnings in a couple weeks, I believe. That's ADSK. I think Oclaro, there was a nice block. That's Oracle. Oclaro's down here. It's a total of 9,000 of the April 10s trade. I did add this name in options. I was already long this name in cash. But we talked about Valet already. A little bit of calls in Mosaic and CF. CF reports this week. Mosaic reported last week, so some follow-through activity for a couple of the agriculture names. And what else is on the list? Some Gilead came up in the morning. We already talked about Apple. A little bit of Yum calls, but Yum was actually weak at the end of the day. They were talking about Popeyes being possibly bought out. So maybe somebody thought in the morning that it might have been Yum, but it looks like there was another name in the headlines, and Yum actually sold off on that. On the ETF side, there was some XRT puts, a decent block that went up. Also some XLU puts that went up, which I think makes perfect sense considering that bonds are starting to pull back again. Gold was also weak today. And there was also a little bit of some SLV calls. These were traded at a pretty low dollar amount. But so it is what it is. The only negative thing that I would say is tomorrow you have a Janet Yellen meeting, and some of the indices are getting overbought. IWM did not close on the highs, and the positives are you got almost a full participation in the sector. So I think you just you want to pay attention to the tape, and if there's going to be more get more aggressive call buying, then this market's going to want to lift higher. So thank you for watching tonight's recap, and have a great night. I'll see you on Tuesday.